everyone, Dylan Schumacher, Citadel Defense, and welcome back to another episode of Knight Rider. If you haven't been here before, we'll do the intro that we always do. This is where we slow down, we take some time, we're here to think, we're here to ponder, we're here to talk. This is long form content, which I'm sure you saw before you clicked on the video, because if you're like me, you always go ahead and take a look at that little timestamp. How long am I really looking at here, you know? A lot of you have told me you kind of listen to this like a podcast, so I totally understand that. And, if you're probably just listening to the sounds of my soothing voice rather than watching me sit in this chair, I understand. So, a long time ago, by a long time, I think I mean like 1 or 2 years, so not super long ago, I started a video series called The Point of No Return. And it's on my YouTube channel right now. You can go and watch it. And I updated that series a couple times over the course of a couple of years. I started it during the Biden years. And I talk about how we're past the point of no return, meaning that it's inevitable that the American society, system, government, whatever, sorry, that's my phone, I will turn that off, is going to devolve into violence, unfortunately, at some point. Like, it's just inevitable. There's no way out. We're past the point of no return. The Rubicon has been crossed, etc., etc. Getting over a little sickness, so there'll be some cuts in here because I'm going to have to cut out my coughing because you don't need to listen to that. So, past the point of no return. And like I said, I've updated that a couple times over the years. And I was thinking about that recently. And I've been thinking about that a lot since Charlie Kirk was murdered. And the last Knight Rider video we did was right after Charlie Kirk was murdered. And I said in that video that our government has a chance. They have an opportunity here to prevent the downfall of America. And the way to that opportunity, I thought, maybe you disagree, is to enforce justice in the land. To enforce justice in the land. I said that we were a justice-starved people. We're a people without justice. In the Point of No Return series, I think one of the videos I did in there, I made a video about it somewhere. I'm not sure if it's in that series or not. I talked about anarcho-tyranny, right? And how we live in a time and a place where the criminals and animals in the streets run wild, but if you break the same law, and free of charge, right? Like no one's imprisoning them. Maybe they'll get arrested for the night, but they're back out the next day. Whether it's murders or rapes or riots or whatever. And, basically the law doesn't apply to the animals. But if you, the middle-class American tax-paying citizen who's trying to do right, if you were to do the same thing, well, it's life in prison for you, right? So you get squeezed from both ends. The animals in the streets oppress you. The government makes sure you can't defend yourself. Anarcho-tyranny, right? So it's anarchy in the streets, tyranny from the government, just designed to crush the guy in the middle, which is you, which is me. And I think that was definitely true in the Biden years. It might be true again, we'll find out. And I've been reflecting on all of that over the past however many weeks now it's been since Charlie Kirk was murdered. And I do not think at this point that the government is interested in enforcing justice. Right? Donald Trump was elected the third time, right? Because the second time they cheated. For the third time, with an overwhelmingly clear agenda. Right? We wanted to deport illegal immigrants. We wanted to stabilize the nation. We wanted to put America first, and Americans, heritage Americans, first. That's what we wanted to do. That was what everyone voted for, right? We voted for all these videos of ICE arresting people and deporting them, right? Like that's what we did. That's what we voted for. And then, Charlie Kirk was murdered in there. And that really felt like an inflection point. And I said it in that original video, that's like a turning point. The murder of Charlie Kirk will go down as one of the more important, significant historical events in the decline of America. If you're reading history 100 years from now, the murder of Charlie Kirk it will be noted as a turning point. So, what has the government done to enforce justice, right? And like I said, I would say they missed their window. They missed their opportunity. They are not enforcing justice. Instead, what do we get? We get more money to Israel. I mean, obviously, that's just par for the course. I just saw Donald Trump did an interview yesterday, as of when I'm filming this, maybe the day before, I can't remember, with Laura Ingraham from Fox News, wanting to bring 600,000 Chinese immigrants or exchange students in to go to our colleges and universities, claiming that if he doesn't, all these colleges will go bankrupt, to which Laura Ingraham, to her credit, says, so what? Right? So he's defending importing our pretty widely considered national enemy and educating all these people at our schools. He's wanting to support the Marxist leftist colleges because God forbid they were to go bankrupt. There was that whole H-1B visa debacle, which I guess is still semi-ongoing. There's something like 50 million H-1B visas issued in the United States. You can fact check me on that, but it's something insanely high between like illegal immigrants and H-1Bs. We have somewhere around like 100 million people in this country that don't belong here. That's a problem. That's like 1 in 3. Well, 1 in 3.5, whatever. That's a big deal. I don't know if you remember when this H-1B visa thing went down, but I think Elon Musk, who's since receded from public life as far as politics go, right, because he had a falling out with Trump, but he said something like he's going to go to the mat on the H-1B visa thing, and if you don't like it, if you don't like the importing of immigrant labor to displace you from your job, you can go fuck yourself in the face, I believe is what he said. Not really sure what that means. So that's what we get. Right? We had a government shutdown just end recently. There was like some silver lining there because it's like, oh, food stamps are going to get cut off, but that lasted for like 2 days. We found out 40 million Americans, I'm using the term Americans, 40 million people who live in America are on food stamps. 40 million. It's more than 1 in 10. So what do we get? What do I get? What do you get? Where does that leave us as a country? Does that feel like justice to you? Does that feel like America first? What does that feel like? That feels to me like decline. I do not believe that Mr. Trump has that dog in him, right? I mean, here's a guy who they illegally spied on. I'm talking about the first time, the very first presidency Trump had. He came out and he made this statement that he just found out that Obama authorized a wiretap on him when he was running for president. And I remember listening to that, and I remember thinking, whoa, like, come on, Trump. That's way out there. Like, you got to be, I mean, Obama's terrible, but come on, you can't just say things like that. Then some evidence came out that, yep, that's actually exactly what happened, and now it's just common accepted knowledge. Yep, that was in fact what happened. They made up, the FBI made up this entire thing, this fake intelligence Russian report about how he was colluding with Russia, which is ironic because, of course, that's what the Democrats were actually doing, right? Again, this is all verifiable. I'm not making this up. So that entire thing was a lie, purposeful, intentional lie. So then they stole the election. Then he wouldn't go away. Then they tried to kill him. Then they charged him with a gazillion felonies. You know, he's a convicted felon. If anyone should be convinced at this point to completely wrecking ball the entire system, you think it would be Donald Trump. Right? You think he would go in there with dynamite and just raze this whole thing to the ground and salt the earth behind him. You'd think that the FBI building would have been completely demolished and be made into a little children's park with a playground, a little dog kennel, place to walk your dog, a little dog park next to the kids' park. You'd think that this guy, who has been screwed over at every step of the way, would go in there with a wrecking ball. You'd think that he would, with malice and viciousness, uproot every single leftist appointed judge in the nation that's federally appointed. You'd think he'd fire them all and start replacing them with judges who at least pretend to be impartial. You'd think he would actually do something. Instead, what do we get? We get John Thune, the fearless leader of the Senate, blocking Trump's appointments. Here we are, it's November. It's November 11th when I'm filming this, Armistice Day, and also Veterans Day. And what? We still don't have Trump's appointments almost a year after, 11 months after? What, are you joking me? Like, what is that? What is that supposed to be? And that's what we get. That's where we are. Again, where's the justice, right? Where is the bringing peace and shalom and tranquility and justice to the land? Where's that? If the government's job is to seek the good and the welfare of the people, which I would argue it is, how is our government seeking the good and the welfare of the people? If our government was just like half as hard as the social media managers for the ICE account, right? We'd be living in paradise. But instead, people kill right-wing speakers and nothing happens. Why wouldn't they kill more of us? There's literally no downside for them. Like, what's the downside here? Yeah, Kash Patel, in charge of the FBI, I saw yesterday, his girlfriend is suing someone on Twitter for insinuating she's an Israeli honeypot, which I'm like, she's not an Israeli honeypot, and you know, bringing someone to federal court, I don't know, bringing them to court, suing them for $5 million. Does that sound like justice to you for tweeting something about someone? Does that sound like the FBI is concerned with protecting Americans' rights and the welfare of people? If the FBI's girlfriend gets insulted and she decides to sue people for saying mean things about her? Is that a free society? Is that a society held together by common virtue and honor? What's that? So I think the opportunity's been missed. And I think they chose, one way or another, to not bring justice to the land. I think that the decision has been made. The Rubicon has been crossed. We're past the point of no return. And at this point, even if they wanted to, I don't know what they could do. Like, what I'm saying is, let's say we got a president in there who did take the wrecking ball to everything. Would that prevent us from going off the cliff? I don't know. It would certainly be a shorter landing, or a shorter drop. The cliff wouldn't be as steep. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It wouldn't be as bad. Anything we can do now is only going to help later. But, Americans can't even buy homes. But between the massive amounts of legal immigrants, between the massive corporations buying up family homes, like a starter home now is like $350,000, $400,000. That's insane. During COVID, they printed $9 trillion and dumped it into the economy. They printed $9 trillion with a T dollars. You can't even imagine how much money $9 trillion is. Like, your brain cannot handle that. A billion has 9 zeros. If you were to count a billion seconds, that's something like 32 years. You can go ahead and fact check me on that. I don't know what a trillion is, but it's a lot. 9 trillion. $9 trillion. Who's gone to jail for any of that? For COVID era stuff. For intentionally creating a vaccine that they knew would hurt people and hiding the negative side effects. For the thousands of people's lives that have been ruined by the printing of money, by the, again, experimental vaccine thing that they forced on you at every conceivable opportunity. For the spying, where are the Epstein files? Like, where can we point to in our society of a place where it seems like justice is being enforced? Deportation numbers are pathetically low. What are we doing? As a people, I'm asking, what are we doing? It's lamentable, and you should lament it. And I genuinely, I've thought about this. I've really thought about this a lot. And I don't see a way out. I would love you to convince me that I'm incorrect. I've started listening to Mr. Nick Fuentes. I don't know how to say this poor man's name. I say man. I don't know. I think he's still in his 20s. He's a young kid. He perfectly captures my anger and disgust on a lot of issues, though, which I appreciate. But, and he would say he doesn't believe in political violence and that we need to, take the institutions, you need to start running for offices locally, and you need to, eventually be able to march through the institutions and seize the reins of power. And I listen to that and I just think, you can do that. I don't know if it'll matter, in the sense that I think the thing will collapse before you get anywhere meaningful. I don't understand how the system doesn't collapse under its own weight. Do you? I mean, do you see a way out of that? I'm genuinely asking here. You can say, "Oh, Dylan, you're just perpetually black-pilled, and you got to have hope." And I would say, "Oh, okay. I mean, I don't consider myself black-pilled. I don't feel depressed. I don't think I sound depressed. But let's take a realistic view at the time of history that we're in. And the time of history that we're in is in a collapse, decline place, right? There's this meme, that meme about it's going to get, oh, I'm sorry, brother, but it's going to get worse. And it's like the guy with the balaclava on his face, like driving through some rubble. And it's like, I know things are bad, but it's going to get worse, right? Or there's the phrase, it's going to get worse before it gets worse, I don't like that meme. I don't like those phrases. I always just kind of roll my eyes. And I'm like, shut up. I don't find that helpful. What I want is like an honest assessment of the situation. And an honest assessment of the situation is things are so dilapidated, so in disrepair, that I don't know if it's fixable, right? Like just honest assessment. If you had a good example here, like, okay, we'll come back to that. So if you had a bridge and it hadn't been maintained for like 200 years, okay? And it's not like one of these good Roman stone bridges I'm talking about, right? Like built in like 200 AD that just, still standing, people still walk across. That's cool. We can't build anything like that anymore. That's a problem. They built it out of timbers, okay? Because this was in like the woods in Michigan, okay? And they built it out of quality timbers, and they did all the right stuff when they built it. It was a solid bridge in its day. But over time, things decay. That's the natural state of where we live, right? That's part of the curse that God placed on mankind and on nature. And so things decay. And this bridge decays over time. And now the planks are rotted out, and the metal joints that they riveted in and screwed in are rusted, They haven't been oiled over time. The wood wasn't repainted or retreated or whatever it is you do to keep wood from rotting. I don't know. Restained. A couple times people drove heavier loads over the bridge than they should have. It was only designed for bike traffic, but now they've used it as a train bridge and they've never reinforced it. And you come along and you look at this bridge and they say to you, hey, we got to fix this bridge. And you look at that bridge, realistically, what you're probably going to say is, what we need to do? We need to completely remove this entire bridge and we need to replace it. That's what we need to do. We need to completely remove the bridge. We have some controlled demolition. We need to purposefully and intentionally remove the bridge and replace it with a quality bridge that we can make work here. That would be better than what we have now. Because what we have now is we don't even have someone coming along to say, let's replace the bridge. Everyone just says, bridge is fine. Everything's fine. We're in the biggest boom ever. GDP is growing. The GDP number actually means, it's like the exchange of goods domestically. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's a completely made up number. I just realized this fully a little bit ago. And the GDP number is a complete bunk metric. It is the biggest lie you've been sold your entire life. It just means that we've exchanged goods internally. So if I pay you $10 to, drive me to the airport, and then you pay me $10 to drive you back to your house, we've just increased the GDP by $20. Does that make any sense to you whatsoever? I'm sure someone's smarter in economics than me, but that's completely garbage metric. So what are we doing here? There's a reason I'm not a libertarian anymore. And I guess at one point I would have called myself that. And it's because it doesn't have an ability to deal with cultural cohesion. It doesn't have an ability to deal with morality. It does not have an ability to know that a nation involves people and culture and places and ceremony. It just says the individual uber alles, money uber alles, borders aren't real. You can do whatever you want. Just don't hurt anybody. But other than that, it's fine. If you want to cut off your genitals and smoke drugs, that's fine. That's not going to have a negative impact on society at large. It's not hurting you. What's the problem? It's really a child's view of the world. So, where do we go from here? Right? Again, there's not a place where it seems to me that we are living in a time of justice. I don't think if they wanted to enforce justice, they could. Microcosm here. Right before Charlie Kirk was murdered, there was that girl, Ileana, I can't remember her full name now, I feel bad about that, who was stabbed to death on a train in North Carolina, like a subway train, public transit, by some black guy. Stabbed her right in the neck, said, I got that white girl, right? Racially motivated, pretty evil. Last I knew, that guy wasn't in prison. He'd been transferred to a mental health facility, because he's not sane. I remember being a kid, my mom saying to me, of course these people aren't sane. Of course there's something wrong with them. That's why they do the things they did. Like mental insanity isn't an excuse. Of course they're insane. That's why they murdered someone. My mom was correct. Good job, Mom. Right? Like, what does that matter? Like, why is that even a defense? No sane person just stabs a person on a train randomly. That's not a normal thing to do. Just randomly murder someone. We don't want those people in society, obviously. But again, no justice, right? Justice is not being enforced. The government is not punishing evil. They're certainly not rewarding good. That's a whole other thing. We're back to the anarcho-tyranny. Maybe not the tyranny, slightly less, I guess, because the government isn't as intentionally coming after you as they were. Unless, of course, you criticize Israel. You can't do that. I don't know. That's like they passed a law in Florida of all places, to say, we're going to crack down on the anti-Semitism because criticizing Israel is a crime now or something. Is that a people that puts America first? Is that a serious country interested in preserving its people and its culture? Of course not. Of course not, right? So even, like I said, even if someone came in and they wanted to do all that, could they turn it around at this point? I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I would love for someone to go hard in the paint. Let's find out. Let's see if we could. But at this point, it's pretty clear that nobody has the will. Nobody's got that dog, right? Your leaders, unfortunately for you and for me, are not interested in your welfare. They're interested in cajoling you. They're interested in browbeating you. They're interested in using you to further their own interests, right? So I'm a big ancient Roman history guy. I'm a big Roman history fan, like most true men, right? And one of the things about the Republic it's not a 100% rule, but in general, I think it was super interesting, is that the interests of the elite were aligned with the interests of the people. Again, exceptions, not all the time. Rome had its own problems. I'm not saying it was a perfect system by any means, but if you wanted to increase your own standing, then you had to increase the glory of Rome. And they would do that by going to war, fighting in wars. And when I say fighting, like that's what I mean. When the Romans got crushed at Cannae, however you pronounce it, like 80,000 Romans die in a day. 80,000! And it's like a couple hundred senators, maybe it's 100 senators, both proconsuls, which were like the president, and a bunch of other government officials. Right? Which means that when the Rome went to war, and the people who voted to go to war, guess who strapped up their armor? Right? Those are the people that went. Those are the people that died. Again, 80,000, so a lot of normal Romans died too. But the interests of the elite were aligned with the interests of the people. The interests of the elite, they fought in the wars. They built big public works, right? Like bathhouses and gardens and statues. They gave their wealth back to the people. You know what I mean? Like, what if, to be an American politician meant that you built a huge health center with a spa and some baths and workout gyms and basketball courts and squash courts in your home city, right? You built a 40,000 square foot mega complex for all the residents of the city, and you just had to show up there and show your driver's license, and you could get swiped in and go to your health club. That'd be wild. Can you even imagine that? Can you even imagine what that would be like? And there's a degree to which that society has far more justice than yours does. So again, what do we what are we doing here, right? And I think at this point, you have to understand that it's probably not salvageable. Again, would love to be wrong on this. Would love to be wrong on all this. I don't see a way out that even if someone went hard in the paint, did everything they could, closed the FBI, deported every single illegal immigrant they could get their hands on, canceled H-1B visas, canceled them all like today, sent them all back. Sorry, someone came in here. I forgot where I was in my little rant. But my point here is even if we did all the stuff, I don't know if it'd be enough. I mean, just the debt alone might end it, right? No one's going to balance the budget. I saw Rand Paul come out the other day and say that he wants to ensure Social Security continues because it's a good program and he plans on being old enough to collect Social Security. And so, he'd like to make sure that it's still there and still a viable program. And I'm just like, we have Rand Paul out here shilling for one of the most communist programs in American history ever. Like one of the most damaging programs. Maybe Obamacare and Social Security are tied for how much damage they've done to America as a whole. Maybe Social Security wins just because it's been around for 100 years, give or take. So, I think understanding it's probably not optimal, probably not going to go great. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think it'll ever break out into like full scale, 1860 Civil War kind of thing, where there's like clear sides and clear battle lines and, employing tanks on American soil. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I just think things will continue to spin up and there'll be more sporadic violences. There'll be more assassinations. There'll be less availability to things you used to take for granted, like air travel. When I was a kid, air travel was a given. Yeah, I mean, before 9/11, it wasn't so bad, right? Post 9/11, even post 9/11, it's generally safe. Generally good to go. I think stuff like that will be like, it's not really a good idea to fly anymore. There's like a 20% chance you might not make it because the plane will crash either from equipment malfunctions or pilot incompetency or whatever. Maybe highways that used to be, highways, you can travel anywhere on the highways. Maybe that's not a thing anymore. And there are certain parts of the country you can't really drive through because, it's spotty. You might get robbed if you go through that part of the country. I could see that, a lot more. And that just becoming the norm. You do with that what you want. You prepare for that how you want. But I think you have to understand that the America you grew up in, if you were born before the year 1990, no longer exists. Right? You probably know that if you're watching this channel. You probably agree with me. Maybe you don't, which is fine. But you probably understand that's not real anymore, and we can't go back. As much as we want to, there's no way to go back. So, where does that leave this whole thing? Right? What does that mean? And I think that, again, I want to live in reality. I want to understand where we are. And where we are is unequivocally in decline. You might disagree about how much or how bad it's going to be or what happens when we hit the bottom or where the bottom is or whatever. And that's fine. But I think that one of the leading factors that got us here is a government that has refused for decades to enforce real justice, to care for its people. Instead, it's been controlled by money interests, right? Or, yeah, even like, okay, side note, even like when we give Israel like billions of dollars, people defend it by saying, oh, well, they have to spend so much percent, I think it's like 80%, maybe it's 100% of that money in America. So actually, it stimulates the American economy. And I'm like, so wait a second. You're telling me that my tax dollars are getting spent on like 5 or 6 main government contractors to sell weapons of war or gear or whatever to Israel, and that's supposed to make me feel better about it? That these government contract arms suppliers get rich off my tax dollars? that I'm supposed to be okay with this now, like, right? So the money flows to a few, and I think this whole thing is shaping up more and more to be nationalists. And by that, I'm going to mean people who actually care about the country they live in and want it to be a nice place, versus communists. And by that, I mean people who will lie, cheat, and steal to get whatever small political gain or political win they can to make themselves feel better, to enrich themselves at the cost of you. Nationalists versus communists, old struggle. Old struggle. So, you think about it. Roll it around your brain. You leave your little comments. Let me know what you think about that. I do know that at the end of the day, the end of time, at some point, Jesus will return. He will punish and slay the wicked. He will reward his people who put their faith and trust in him. I'm filming a video. What are you doing?
I was going to say, I don't know if you're filming a video. Would you take a look at my room? Because I've got all the...
I'll be in 5 minutes.
I was going to say, could we do the desk tomorrow?
Okay, let me come in 5 minutes. And because of that, we can have hope. We don't have to live in fear, depression, or worry, or doubt, or whatever. Yeah, it'll probably be really hard. Yeah, it's probably going to be difficult and suboptimal. Jesus wins. I'm going to live confidently and faithfully. I'm going to trust my boys. I'm going to love my kids. I'm going to take care of my wife. The chips are going to fall where they may, and if I get ground to dust in the gears of history, that's okay. It's just life, right? Like, at some point, you have to understand that eternity is more important than this. Now, this is very important. Don't hear me saying it's not important. But I think when you have an eternal perspective, it helps keep the current depressing, horrible decline of our time in proper perspective. And that gives me hope. And if you don't believe that, I would invite you to believe that and know Jesus. Because otherwise, I'll be straight up honest with you. I'm not sure what gives you hope. I appreciate you coming along for today's ramblings. Do brave deeds. End of story.